I want to read some of the information here. This is a kind of a prelude to one of the books of Zecharia Sitchin about the ancient Sumerians. That basically the home capital of Mesopotamia is now Baghdad, and a tremendous amount of ancient knowledge in that area. It's one reason that we had special forces go in and ransack the Iraq library during the Gulf War. Put that back on a big aircraft carrier that Bush met out in the ocean coming back with victory on it. Victory was they had raided this library of ancient knowledge, and basically when you see leaders of the world do that, they're looking for ancient technology in order to destroy or kill somebody. It's the way Satan works. We got his Kenites, his serpent seed on this earth, and you better realize it. Now, guys, for the ones that do videos, I'm going to say this. When you take the time to do research and study or whatever you're doing to make your video, you always have in the back of your mind that people like it. You don't want them to scorn it, and you don't want to be trolled to death and things like that. But sometimes there comes a point where you have to take the darts. You have to be that dartboard in order to push forward the truth. It may not make you very popular, but you may pull a few out of deception. And for you guys that do videos that I call a group of the watchmen, then it's very important that regardless if people like it or not, put it out there. There's somebody that will see it, read it, listen to it, and understand it, and will not be deceived in the end time. Now, I call myself a Christian. I believe that Jesus Christ is the way and the only way. Let's get that straight right off. These are ancient texts. And guys, even modern day scientists and theologians have agreed that much of the Old Testament came from these writings. And you guys with eyes to see and ears to hear, you know what I'm saying. You've studied it too. The elect are watchmen, and they also study. Let's read this. Some 445,000 years ago, astronauts, not gods, from another planet came to Earth in search of gold. Splashing down in one of Earth's seas, they waded ashore and established Eridu, home in the faraway. In time, the initial settlement expanded to a full-fledged mission Earth with a mission control center, spaceport, mining operations, and even a way station on Mars. Short of manpower, the astronauts employed genetic engineering to fashion primitive workers called Homo sapiens. The deluge, or the flood that catastrophically swept over the earth, required a fresh start. The astronauts became gods. Do what? Are you listening? Granting mankind civilization and teaching it to worship. Worship what? Worship them. They divided up the earth. They divided up Africa, Egypt. They divided up, sent even people in charge of Mars. And they granted them groups of people that would serve them. Do you understand what I'm saying? This is what the Old Testament is. Now again, remember, all videos are not going to be popular with all people. It says, then about 4,000 years ago, all that had been achieved unraveled in a nuclear calamity brought about by the visitors to Earth in the course of their own rivalries and wars. As we've seen all over the world, India, the Hopi, South America, China, tells about the flood and tells about the wars in heaven. Or in India, they talk about seeing these spacecraft battle each other. Okay? They're gods. They're gods. It says what had taken place on earth, and especially the event since human history began, has been culled by Zecharia Sitchin in the Earth Chronicles series from the Bible, clay tablets, ancient myths, and archaeological discoveries. But what had preceded the events on Earth? What had taken place on the astronauts' own planet, Nibiru, that caused the space journey, the need for gold, the creation of man? Now, guys, I'm not going to get into all that. I've read it, and some of you guys have too. You know, their planet was in trouble, and what they did with this gold was to crush it into a fine powder and basically chemtrail it, trying to protect their atmosphere that had been destroyed by their own nuclear wars on their planet. It says what emotions, rivalries, beliefs, morals, or the lack thereof, pay attention, motivated the principal players in the celestial and space sagas. Now, what were the relationships that caused mounting tensions on both Nibiru and Earth? What tensions arose between old and young, between those that come from Nibiru and those born on Earth? Now, guys, it's going to seem kind of strange if you have not studied these ancient texts. Okay? But once you study them, you'll realize that the Old Testament is a very watered down version of these events, extremely watered down. Now, for instance, one of the studies about the Great Flood of the Sumerians is that Noah was a halfling. In other words, the gods had, the astronauts had been not only genetically engineering, but one group were actually mating with the daughters of men. Does that sound familiar? That's why this video is being made, because the Old Testament is not what you think it is. And the people that do not believe in the New Testament, which is a very key reason for it to be here, the ones that just believe in the Old Testament, you know who you are. You're believing tales of astronauts that wanted people to worship them, and people did, being sheeples and sleeples that did not understand their technology. It was simply that. That's all it was, a technological advantage over humans. And so the astronauts took advantage of it. That tells you the streak of evil behind that lie of the fallen angels and Satan. But Satan and his group wrote the Old Testament. Why? A lot of the players in it didn't understand why. Some of the scribes and some of our Old Testament prophets. But were they really prophets? No. Every time it would say, Son of man, hear the voice of God. Or God said for you to go to the people of Israel and tell them this. But when you start studying back, and you start reading some of the things that the gods did that were telling them this, that was not God. It was these fallen angels pretending to be gods, the same way Satan's going to do very shortly when he returns. And I think we're starting to see the return of these angels now through possibly some of the things we saw in Arizona 2 weeks ago. But when you study the flood and you study some of the other things of the Old Testament, then you see them written thousands of years before they were written there with the same names. Now, for instance, in the flood, the first flood, we have heard of the name of Noah, and then it starts talking about the generations of Noah. Shem and Japheth are two of his sons. I think Ham was the other one. Now, Shem and Japheth are the sons of the Noah here. Even the spelling is the same. So, what are we talking about? What I'm telling you is this. And Satan has allowed it to happen mainly through the evil empire of the Roman Catholic Church, the ones that cried, crucify him, because he had the truth. Now, this goes on to say, it says, scholars, theologians alike now recognize that the biblical tales of creation, of Adam and Eve, the Garden of Eden, The deluge, the Tower of Babel, were based on texts written down millennia earlier in Mesopotamia, especially by the Sumerians, and they, catch this, in turn clearly state that they obtained their knowledge of past events, many from a time before civilizations began, even before mankind came to be, from the writings of the Anunnaki. And as a result of a century and a half of archaeological discoveries in the ruins of the ancient civilizations, especially in the Near East, a great number of such early texts have been found. The finds also have revealed the extent of missing texts, so-called lost books, which are either mentioned in discovered text or are inferred from such texts, or that are known to have existed because they were cataloged in royal or temple libraries. Now, it says sometimes the secrets of the gods, plural. What they're talking about, guys, is handed down through the Greece and Rome, through their Zeus and all of their gods that they're talking about. Even Ashtar was a Sumerian female, not a god, a female astronaut. It says they were partly revealed in epic tales, and such as the Epic of Gilgamesh, that's the one of Noah, that disclosed the debate among the gods that led to the decision to let mankind perish in the deluge, or in a text titled Atrahasis, which recalled the mutiny of the Anunnaki, which had toiled in the gold mines that led to the creation of primitive workers. It says from time to time the leaders of the astronauts themselves authored compositions. And when they didn't, they told someone to write it down, sometimes dictating the text to a chosen scribe, as the text called the Era Epos, in which one of the two gods who had caused the nuclear calamity sought to shift the blame to his adversary. Sometime the god acted as his own scribe, as in the case regarding the books of the secret of Thoth, the Egyptian god of knowledge, which the god had secreted in a subterranean chamber. Now here begins part of the great deception of these ancient texts. And some people have even been deceived by this, and I want you to pay attention. It says, when the Lord God Yahweh, Yahweh, according to the Bible, granted the commandments to his chosen people, he at first inscribed his own hand to 2 stone tablets that he gave to Moses on Mount Sinai. When Moses threw down and broke the first set of tablets in response to the golden calf incident, the replacement set was written by Moses on the tablets on both their sides when he stayed on the mount 40 days and 40 nights, recording the dictated words of the Lord. The same thing happened in the ancient Sumerian text. One of the astronauts that they thought were gods, I guess he had even about believed it by then, sent one of his spaceship craft over and picked up this dude, and he came in and sat 40 days and 40 nights in the chamber and wrote down the lost book of Enki. Now, this was thousands of years before what many people think started 6,000 years ago. Guys, don't be naive and believe that all of this started 6,000 years ago. I just came through Arizona and New Mexico. It's millions of years old. And the stories of the Hopis during the flood, going from reed canoes from island to island, they're talking about the top of those mesas. The flood happened. The history in the Old Testament is pretty correct as far as what happened, but it is not a divine book. It is a deception by Satan. And guys, one of the key things, and I'm going to keep this short, is that when you study and look at the Old Testament, these so-called gods were bloodthirsty, cattle mutilators. Give us the blood and the fat, just like in Dulce, where they find these dead cattle and around the world mutilated. They're a bunch of bloodsuckers. Don't be deceived. Study for yourself. Study to show thyself approved. Rightly divide the word of God. Heads up.